Welcome to this week's OpenJ9 community call. We'll kick things off as we usually do by opening the floor to any questions, comments, or discussion people want to have around OpenJ9, particularly with any topics that may be of interest to our end users and adopters. Seeing the usual cascade of people on this call. Not sure if there'll be anything coming up right now, but we'll take a look at some of the user-raised issues in a minute.
I'll just mention that somebody has opened an issue or opened a pull request to fix a bunch of spelling mistakes. So he's got some tooling that helps him fix spelling problems, and he's fixed all the spelling errors starting with A and B in this particular PR only in comments, code comments. And I expect him to open more pull requests later to fix other spelling mistakes starting with other letters and maybe fix some spelling mistakes in code. So I've started a pull request build. I've reviewed his A-B changes. They all look good. And if the pull request build passes, then I'm going to merge it.
Oh, that's great. It's good to see the contributions like that and any other contributions. And it's a great way to fix my terrible spelling.
Yeah.
So last week we had a lightning talk on some of the changes to the way we run tests and some of the improvements there. I know we have two more in the pipeline that I need to connect with Shelley and Lan to get lined up. But if there's other updates in this area, it would be good to have other topics and other things discussed here. So if people have ideas, please add them in. I will pull up the user-raised issues. We'll take a quick look through the recent ones. There was a issue reported at Adopt OpenJDK where the error message they're getting out of OpenJ9 is different than what they're getting out of OpenJDK, and in fact, we're refusing some special command characters or some special characters in the command line. Somebody's looking at this and actively trying to reproduce it, so I think that one's making progress. The Eclipse INI discussion, Peter, I think you've been involved in that.
Yeah, and I saw you suggested turning on shared classes, and we're waiting for a response to that.
Yes, thank you.
The one thing I would note is that you asked him to specify a shared cache size, but the default sizes should be good. I think you get a 300 meg cache by default, which is soft limited to a smaller size, like 64K, okay. 64 meg.
Thanks. I will stop suggesting sizes then. The Sonar checked your code. This seemed to be a question about whether we have run Sonar Cube with OpenJ9. I'm not aware of anyone having done that, but I don't see why it wouldn't work. So we'll keep that open for a little bit to see if we get some responses around that or not. This out-of-memory error at startup with IntelliJ. Somebody been involved in this already?
It seemed to only happen with OpenJ9, but it wasn't clear that it was necessarily an OpenJ9 problem.
Okay. I know Charlie, who's commented on this, has been out at a conference all week, so may not have a chance.
There was an issue opened at IntelliJ.
I don't have a login for that, so I'll have to follow up with that offline. All right. The null pointer exception for tests on the Renaissance suite. So Renaissance suite was a new benchmark suite created to show off some of the optimizations from Grohl in particular. And I believe Jason has identified cause of the issue here.
Yeah, he's created a PR with a fix, but I suggested an alternative approach to fix it. So I assume he's looking at that.
Okay. The next one is an issue with Mac OS X has a old form of dilibs or shared libraries called JNI libs, and OpenJDK by default falls back to looking for JNI libs if it can't find the dilib. So we need to update OpenJ9 to do the same. Somebody's working on that actively. Locale get default, I believe, is being looked at as well. And the printer job get font height. All right, so I think we have a question there, and unless we hear a response, I'll probably close that out. All right, so that's sort of things opened in the last week. So we'll jump back to the agenda unless there's any other issues people want to pull up or wanted to have a quick conversation about.
I didn't want to pull up anything, but I wanted to kind of make a comment that it seems like there are more people starting to use and post, problems, issues, and findings about OpenJ9. I was doing some searching last night on just looking for people who'd mentioned OpenJ9 on Twitter, and it seemed like, the last week or two has been, things have been picking up in terms of people talking about using OpenJ9. Some people having issues, a lot of people reporting great results, but I think it's hopefully a good sign. And I think we need to encourage people to keep opening these issues and to try to get them fixed. I think it's good.
Yeah, I'll second that. And especially I'm thankful for the person on Slack who was mentioning that he's been targeting some of the big data applications to make sure that they work and support OpenJ9 as well. So any efforts we can do to help encourage that would be a big win there as well.
I don't know if anybody has a link to the adopt download stats. We could check if there's been an increase in the number of downloads recently.
What is the dash?
There should be. We had Devox UK conference last week and been promoting OpenJ9 at that.
So if we, all right. So take a look at GK8. So the 0.12 release had about 30,000 downloads. 0.14, we're at 17,000.
I guess we'd have to know what it was at a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Need some kind of trend line for these. Have to find a way to do a little more analysis on that. I'll add something to the agenda there.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a way to do that from the site. We may just need to snapshot it periodically and look at how our things are changing.
All right. Great suggestion. All right, so coming up in terms of the direction of the roadmap, we have a 0.14.2 release, which is a refresh of the 0.14 branch with the issues and PRs that have been tagged as backport candidates. The goal being that these are some of the user-raised issues that we found, and we want to get them out into a release build for people. And it seems like an ideal time as Adopt is looking to do a refresh of the builds to include Ice-T Web. So the branch at OpenJ9 has been created for this. I believe there might be 3 remaining potential candidates for this branch. I believe the extensions branch has been created as well, yes?
Correct, for JDK 8 and JDK 11. Something we could discuss is if we want to refresh JDK 12. I'm not sure it's worth the effort.
Yeah, I think 8 and 11 definitely make sense. I'm ambivalent to 12, given what I suspect the adoption stats are. But we'll look at that too. Yeah, given the adoption stats on 12, I'm not sure it makes a big difference here. How much extra work is it to run the build on 12?
It's not a lot. I'd need to check whether or not the Ice-T Web is actually making it into the 12 builds at Adopt.
That was not the plan, actually. It's 8 and 11.
Okay. Well, that seems like an easy reason to say we'll skip 12 on this, given that the main purpose is to get a Ice-T Web into the installers. Anybody disagree with that?
No, I think that makes the most sense.
All right. The next release after that will be the 0.15 release in July. We've got the Eclipse plan created and the milestone created as well. The reality check date is coming up on June 18, so please be aware of what we have targeted in that milestone and be thinking about how to get those issues closed out. The JDK Next repo.
Actually, sorry, before we move on, I just wanted to point out, I think Sue's on the call, there are 2 things that affect documentation that are going into 14.2. One is the support for the OpenSSL 101, and the other one is we've turned off message digest because there are cases where it crashes. OpenSSL message digest.
Okay, I've made a note.
I opened a doc issue for the message digest. I assume there's a doc issue for OpenSSL 101, although it may not talk about.
There is, yeah. It didn't talk about 0.14.2, but yeah, it makes sense that that would have happened. So yeah, I'll work out what docs we need to do to get that up to date. Thanks, Peter.
Testing on the JDK Next repo, we were going to run some acceptance builds to validate that all the fixes that have landed have enabled this again. Did those builds get run?
We're able to run builds now. We're able to run tests now. I think some things fell over in the runs last night, but we can't promote the latest JDK Next content because AIX doesn't compile. It needs the XLC 16 support. Unless we decide to turn off that platform. So on the back level, of JDK Next that we have in the OpenJ9 branch, I believe all the tests are passing.
Yeah, I would be tempted to turn off AIX support until we have the XLC update completed. Make sure that we're keeping up to date with all the other changes going in.
So I guess all we've run so far is Sanity. We could run all the other tests as well and see how they're looking.
Okay.
You could always have another build do AX on the older content if you wanted off to the side.
I think if we promote staging to OpenJ9, we won't have a branch with the older content. We'd have to make one.
But yeah, you could just specify the old SHA specifically.
I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense at this point. It would be manual testing for something that's already out of date, or it would be automatic testing for something that's out of date. I think the core AIX code will already be covered by 8 and 11 builds.
It's kind of papering over the issue on the AIX platform too, right? I think it's better to actually disable it and get it fixed and then get it updated. Otherwise, you're promoting kind of two things at the same time. And what's, do we really need to keep running tests on something that we already presumably know is working?
Yeah, agreed. I think we have issues for the AIX
We do.
compiler. So we'll have to dig those out, or unless somebody already has the issue link available. Any other discussion on JDK Next? So there's some actions left over from the previous retrospectives, and I know that we've done some work to speed up the merge process for 8, 11, 12, and Next. Has that been rolled out to all streams now? Andrew's not on the call, but Simon, do you know by any chance?
I believe it is.
Do you know where the merge jobs are, Adam?
Internal. I can send you a link. There's a tab.
Sorry, I'm talking on mute. Yes, the merge jobs are all now running and promoting to the new staging branch automatically. I think Andrew was talking to you, wasn't he, Adam, about whether we're now in a position to test those staging branches. And as of today, I think Andrew's also put in the similar changes for JDK 8, so that where we have to combine the 6 Mercurial repositories into the one Git, which had other problems to work in a similar manner. So I think we have auto merge now, I think. That's around 30 minutes rather than 30 hours.
That's a great improvement. Thanks to Andrew and everyone else involved in getting there. Okay. All right. Then jumping down to the regular adopt update. I know Shelley's not on the call today, so we may not have a usual representation there.
So I know we're trying to work towards this IST web release. From the hotspot point of view, that's the picking up the BO4 level. And from the OpenJ9 point of view, that's picking up the same OpenJDK level with the 0.14.2 release we've just been discussing. The build has had a few problems. I had noticed an issue with Java version output earlier on today, which I think Andrew's fixed. The nightly builds are now producing an MSI with the ICT web package in it, though it's got a strange pre-release name on it at the moment. So I'm just trying to square up with the people producing that, who know more about ICT web than I do, as to whether the package as it exists within the MSI installer is in fact usable if you download it. So I've kind of done the testing that I'm able to do with my knowledge, but I don't know much about actually launching applications via the new facility. So if I get some confirmation from somebody that it's good to go, then we should be able to produce the new releases. Of course, it needs to go hand in hand with the final tag on the OpenJ9 0.14.2 release at OpenJ9. There's one other issue, which is that the packages which are being produced via the Microsoft 2015 Visual Studio compiler have a dependency on a runtime DLL, a Microsoft one. That's being shipped as part of JDK 11 already, but it's not when it's not via JDK 8, which I suspect doesn't use that compiler. Unfortunately, the ICT web package is using that, so if you try and run it, you may not have this DLL already on your Windows box. So again, we need to establish a position as to what we're going to do about that. For people using 8 who might hit that issue if they start trying to run ICT web and they don't have the DLL. So that's my status from that point of view.
Thanks,
Simon, do you know if the working target for that is still like end of the week for getting a release out at Adopt with the installers?
Well, so from the work we need to do, once we got the okay on the package, it's, we're within 24 hours of being able to release, but I don't really have a prognosis for sorting out the issues I just described with ICT Web itself.
Right. Who is the person at Adopt who's kind of driving this release process for the getting ICT Web into the installers?
So it's been Charlie from the OpenJ9 side who's been done most of the code. Then there's George Adams at JClarity, and a man called Philippe, who I suspect is French, but I don't really know where he's from, but he's been helping a lot with the MSI work generally. I have questions in the Slack channels, and I'm hoping for responses. But you know how it is.
Yes. Okay. All right. So there's no single person who's kind of driving this forward to get this release out the door at this point.
I suppose Dominica and I would be the nearest people for that.
Yes. I mean, we talked to Martijn and said that we really want this within a week.
Yep.
And want to join this up with our re-release.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks.
Okay. The next item is continuing to track the contributor teams bug. I haven't seen an update to that lately, so I'll just pull that open for a minute and see. So they have some screenshots there to show how this would work, or the potential implementation of this, which I'll pull up for a second. So the page would look something like this. It would just be, hey, you add a member to the contributors list, and then they should show up eventually on GitHub and be able to have issues assigned to them, which would be a big plus. So we'll continue to monitor this and see when this lands. Adam, if you can give us an update on the machines.
Sure. Okay, so we renewed all our AX machines, so that's good for another year. Shelley is in Toronto, is pursuing getting 6 more machines, so hopefully have an update on that shortly. Disk usage is stable right now. for both Artifactory and Jenkins Master. We rolled out our pipeline for PR changes a couple weeks ago now, and we've now defaulted to have the new ones as the default. You can still launch the old ones using a legacy keyword. So I have a PR open to resolve 443, which is allowing or the ability to test pipeline changes in a PR build. So once that's fully resolved, then we can turn off the old builds and clean them up. And then there's a lot more dead code we can clean up from there. That's about it. Not too much updates today. Any questions?
The Macs that we were going to get shipped to UNB, do you know what the state of them is?
I think they were set up and tested, or maybe they were just waiting to be tested. Probably took a little bit of a backseat because of Connor leaving, but I can follow up with Joe on that.
Okay. Thanks, Adam. Sue, is there anything you want to bring up for the website design review?
Yeah, just briefly. The design team are pretty busy at the moment, and they've asked for a few weeks grace before they can come to this meeting. I've also been talking to them about our new starter who's going to be doing the work, and he's coming on board. It looks like the 10th of June now, which is slightly earlier than I thought. But it's probably a good idea to give him a couple of weeks to get his feet under the table, being completely new to the company and everything. So I think it's probably a good idea to go for a meeting sometime in the first 2 weeks of July, and invite the design team along, and the guy who's going to be doing the work will then be part of the meeting and will be more up to speed with what's going to be required. So it's a little bit later than we wanted to really start looking at this again, but I think it makes sense. One question I had is whether we want to make it part of this meeting or make an exceptional meeting for it. If it's part of this meeting, they're really only limited to 10-15 minutes if you want to cover what you normally do on the agenda, which might be a bit short.
I'd suggest we hold a separate meeting for this because it may be something that runs longer.
Yeah.
We may even want to do that on WebEx or something else where we're not hard capped.
Okay. I'll ask if they're available to have a meeting in a day in the first 2 weeks of July, and then we'll book something up from there.
Okay. Thanks, Sue.
Okay. Thanks.
Is there any other business people would like to discuss this week? All right. Then thank you, everyone, and we'll chat again on this call on May 22nd.
Thank you.
Thanks.